Joining me with details on the new Santa Ana wind rating tool and how it could help save lives is my guest, SDG&E Senior Meteorologist Steve Vandenberg. Also joining us with lessons learned from last year's fire in Carlsbad is Battalion Chief Jeff Chumley. Now, Jeff, 46 single-family homes were destroyed in the May wildfires last year. The poinsettia fire in Carlsbad, I understand, was the second fire to break out, and it was the most devastating. Describe the scene when you first arrived there.
Well, it was very chaotic. As you know, the fire started near Poinsettia. I went directly to Cassia, which is where there was a large apartment complex, and the fire was already reaching that location. So as I got out of my vehicle to kind of continue with the size up for incoming units, I looked to my immediate right, and there was a large apartment complex, and cars were already on fire in the parking lot. There were people running from their apartments with no shoes, no shirt, and I had police officers helping with the evacuations. To my immediate left was a dental office, an all-cats hospital, and then just to the north of me was a large housing development. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is not good. And the wind conditions were pushing the fire, as well as there were slopes in the area, so the topography was also driving the fire, and the fire was moving rather quickly. Our goal was to try to keep the fire from crossing El Camino Real, and within minutes we knew that was not going to happen. The fire had already driven it across El Camino Real.
And so, Steve, Jeff mentioned these Santa Ana winds. As a meteorologist, you monitor Santa Ana winds. What were they like during the May wildfires, and how did that compare to the wildfires of 2003 and 2007?
Well, the Santa Ana winds that occurred during that event were quite strong, and what made it more remarkable was that it was occurring so late in the season in May. But from a wind speed and a vegetation perspective, that was the fourth highest risk event we've seen in 30 years in this county. And October 2007, of course, being the highest risk, the strongest Santa Ana wind event on record for this county. But to have the fourth strongest and highest risk Santa Ana wind event in 30 years in May is rather unusual.
And with those winds and the topography, like you said, Jeff, what were some of the major challenges in fighting this fire?
Well, certainly resources were, at a minimum at the time. We had the Bernardo fire, as you know, the day before. It did help us because resources were there, but that did, calling a third alarm, calling for local resources. But it took a while to be able to get all of the resources that were needed, especially as people were being drawn away to fight Cocos, to fight Pendleton, to fight Oceanside, where all the fires were.
And Steve, the U.S. Forest Service now uses this rating system it's in place now for Santa Ana winds, I understand. It's similar to category, right? The categories for tornadoes and hurricanes. How does it work specifically for Santa Ana winds?
Well, what it does is it looks at the weather conditions, and it looks at the fuels conditions or the vegetation. And then based on those conditions, it calculates what the potential is for large fires under those circumstances, and then it gives it a rating. Just like you said, just like a hurricane gets rated on its strength, the Santa Ana wind events get rated on their potential to produce large fires. And then once that rating is sent out by the Forest Service, it's available to the public through SantaAnaWildfireThreat.com.
And some of the things it lists, like here we're looking at Mount Laguna, right? Wind gust, speed, direction. How would somebody specifically use this system, use this type of map?
Well, you would log in to see a 6-day forecast for what's coming. So if you hear on the news there's a Santa Ana wind event coming or a red flag warning, you'd log in and see, oh, this is rated extreme. And attached to that extreme rating will be a series of steps that people can take to prepare. And then also, as you were just showing there to your audience, that you can actually go in, it's interactive, and start clicking on the weather around your area and see what the winds are actually doing closest to your neighborhood.
And it's a 6-day forecast, so you have a little time to prepare, which basically, Jeff, so does the fire department use this sort of information, and how is the fire department preparing for this year's fire season?
Well, first of all, absolutely any information we have is going to help us to keep ourselves prepared. We do our regular annual training for wildland. We understand the fire behavior and the fuels. We have county-wide drills that we work on to prepare for this, and of course preparing our citizens to make sure that they're prepared and are ready.
All right. Chief Jeff Chumley and meteorologist Steve Vandenberg, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.